Hello colleagues, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you today. My name is Steve Rollett and I'm the Deputy CEO of the Confederation of School Trusts, which is CST for short. Now we're the sector body for single and multi-academy school trusts, and we support trusts of all shapes and sizes, supporting them with training, with information and guidance, as well as advocating on their behalf to government and other stakeholders in the system. Now, no doubt you'll have heard recent comments made by the Secretary of State about the government's ambition for all schools to be part of a group, a school trust, something that he reaffirmed actually at our annual conference back in April. Now, in this brief presentation today, I'm going to explore this a little, giving you a sense of what this could mean for the school system, what it probably doesn't mean, and what we at CST think is significant. Now, as you can see, the Secretary of State's statement speaks for itself in terms of the government's top-level ambition to see all schools as part of a group, and for that group to be a trust. It's worth remembering that this is the first time since around 2016 that a Secretary of State has spoken so clearly about a desire to complete the reform journey that has been ongoing for many years now, actually, since around 2010. What is perhaps more important, however, is the rationale that the Secretary of State gave. This is significant, we think, because we're starting to see a narrative developing here which is much more grounded in trusts as being robust and enabling structures, rather than it being about political ideology, which is perhaps some of the narrative that we've seen before in the system. And there is little doubt that the pandemic has brought this into sharper focus, this robustness of school trusts. Indeed, we've seen several pieces of research emerge which suggest that being part of a school trust has been particularly beneficial during the current crisis. For example, in January of 2021, Ofsted published a research report which drew together insights about trusts taken during the pandemic during Ofsted's autumn term visits. As you can see, Ofsted's research picked up on what many of our members were telling us, that being part of a group has been a source of organisational resilience. And this is also a thread that Nottingham University's research, published in April of 2021, also picked up. This is a piece of work we did in collaboration with them. So what we're seeing is not only a government ambition that's oriented towards trusts, but a growing evidence base illuminated by the pandemic that shows what trusts can achieve. Now for CST, it's that second element which matters most. Our commitment to school trusts is not born of government ideology, but a belief in education as a public good, and the belief that this public interest is best served by schools working in partnership with each other. So from our perspective, the term academy, even the multi-academy trust structure itself, it's a means to an end rather than an end in itself. Now, of course, there are a range of partnerships that schools could choose, including these on the screen. And we could probably point to examples of how all of them have enjoyed success at some place or some point in time. So why the government's emphasis on multi-academy trusts as a means of bringing schools into partnership? Well, in part, it's because trusts have a single hard accountability and governance structure, whereas other partnerships tend to have a softer and sometimes conflicting set of governance and accountability relationships. In simple terms, this means that when the going gets tough, as it sometimes can in partnership work, those involved in the partnership can't simply leave if they're in a multi-academy trust, a school trust, as we call them at CST. There is a mutual responsibility to resolve issues and to improve all schools within the partnership. Now, this sentiment was also reflected in this Education Committee report that actually goes back a few years now. By creating one legal entity, we bind everyone to the common mission of advancing education for the public good. And that's the thing that drives us, and that's the thing that drives many of our members. Now, this is important because if we put children at the centre of our mission, as we should, this structure helps to mitigate the risk of adult interest trumping the interests of children. But as I said a few moments ago, structure is not an end in itself. It's about what the structure enables. And there are two key opportunities, I think, that trusts can enable at scale. Now, the first of these is school improvement, and the other is to do with the civic function of school trusts. So we'll take a look at the first one, school improvement. As you can see, 75% of sponsored primary and secondary academies that have been inspected are good or outstanding compared to only 1 in 10 of their predecessor schools. So we're seeing that trusts can be effective in bringing about positive change in schools which have not been providing a suitable education. But what about schools which are not in need of turnaround? What value do trusts add to schools where they're already good? Well, the first point to note here, I think, is that many leaders take the view that school improvement is not the preserve of failing schools in any case. It's something that all schools are engaged in all the time, the ongoing mission to improve education for children. Secondly, Ofsted's category of good is a very broad church, and many school leaders and trustees would recognise that even when judged good, there are things that could be done even better. So what does a group of schools in a trust add to this picture? Well, we make the case that trusts have the potential to be knowledge-building structures and that this can facilitate school improvement at scale. It was Lawrence Stenhouse that said, "There is no curriculum development without teacher development." And as part of a strong group, teachers are being developed through the composite interactions of a greater number of teachers and leaders than exist in their school alone. In many trusts, we're seeing teachers being brought together, often remotely, of course, at the current time, in teams of practice to mobilise and develop the specialised knowledge of the most effective teaching approaches underpinned by robust evidence. So take, for example, trust-wide networks of subject teachers or middle leaders who might discuss, debate and shape curriculum and assessment practice, leveraging their collective professional insight to improve teaching and learning. We're seeing similar practice for those with pastoral responsibilities too, leadership responsibilities and a whole range of other roles as well. Increasingly, this work is underpinned by a rich induction programme for teachers and a conscious cultivation of the right culture across that trust, across that group of schools. And this doesn't have to be about imposing some sort of unwelcome commonality. In many trusts, schemes of delegation allow for particular decisions to be made at school level where it is appropriate, but all underpinned by that carefully curated culture and sense of mission. The second opportunity I want to mention is that of trusts as civic structures. This is about school trusts working with other civic actors to advance education as a public good in their locality. Civic leadership is about the protection and promotion of public values and addressing issues of place or public concern. As well as leading a group of schools to give children a better future, trust leaders look out beyond their organisation. They seek to work with other civic actors to ensure the value of the child and the collective actions of all civic actors protect high quality education. So many of our members are increasingly talking not only about their role as trust leaders, but also as civic leaders and, of course, system leaders. And what this recognises is that they don't only act within a system, they act upon it too. So civic leadership means seeing it as part of your responsibility to protect the interests of the child, including when they don't attend your school. So this means we don't do something in one school that is going to come at the cost of children who attend the school down the road, for example. Now this is a vision that goes beyond the old tropes of competition and take us to a place of real deep and purposeful partnership. So I think it's significant that both the Secretary of State and the Shadow Secretary of State both talked explicitly about the notion of civic leadership when they gave their speeches at CST's annual conference just a few months ago. So to return to where I began, we're seeing a clear ambition from government for all schools to be part of a group of schools, a school trust. But we would make the case that the impetus for this is not the structure itself. It's about what that trust structure enables. In particular, we see trusts as knowledge-building organisations and sites of civic leadership. So what does this mean for all schools, particularly single academy trusts? Well, firstly, I'd say with the exception of schools judged inadequate by Ofsted, there's no compulsion at the current time from government for you to move into a multi-academy trust if you are a single academy trust school. And this is absolutely right. CST wants joining a group to be a positive choice in which schools have agency. This work, therefore, has quite a long horizon, I think. We recognise that some schools will want to take their time. Some may want to explore softer partnerships in the first instance. We're seeing a growing number of schools contracting services with trusts as part of a longer-term move towards integration. Moreover, though, we don't think there's yet the evidence to support a preferred model or size or geography. Now, we at CST, we're committed to representing our full range of members as the system continues to develop. This means that while we support the government's ambition for schools to be in strong families, we'll continue to support our multi-academy trust members, but also our single academy trust members and also our local authority school members, and we have some of those as well, wherever they are on this journey. Whether they're convinced but don't know how to proceed, or whether they're yet to see this as a step that they want to take. We're here for all of our members. Now, I hope that what I've talked to you about today has been useful and has given you a bit of food for thought there, and thinking about not only the government's ambition around school trusts, but also what those of us within the sector ourselves think might be on offer. Thank you for listening.